How we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and today I'm going to be going over my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC Noche, Lopes vs. Silva on September 13th, 2025. Timestamps in the comments below. Let's get right into it with the first fight of 14. We start with the Ultimate Fighter Season 33 finale. We start with the Ultimate Fighter Season 33 welterweight finale, Rodrigo Sezinando versus Daniil Donchenko. I'm picking Daniil Donchenko. This matchup was supposed to happen at UFC 319. It was pushed back to this date. I'm still picking Daniil Donchenko. I actually broke this fight down in that pick and breakdown for you guys. I personally thought Rodrigo Sezinando's performance against Jeff Creighton was overall really bad. But to be fair, I said the same thing about Joseph Morales' performance over Imanol Rodriguez, and he ended up bitching Libby Idris. But Daniil Donchenko, I thought his two performances on The Ultimate Fighter against Matt Dixon and what was the other Brazilian guy's name? It was the first episode. What was his name? Let me check really quick. Richard Martins. I thought his two performances were really solid. He showed great takedown defense, and his stand-up was really, really good. And Rodrigo Sezinando, and from what I've been able to see of him, he's mostly a grappler. But I don't know if he'll be able to take down Daniil Donchenko. I think Daniil Donchenko really showed a lot of good prowess with good hips, keeping it standing, and punishing people for standing with him. And Rodrigo's stand-up, in my opinion, against Buchecha and Jeff Creighton didn't look all that good. A lot of his success came from the wrestling. He was actually getting outstruck by Jeff Creighton, who is a NCAA wrestler. Like, that's all he does. I think Rodrigo Sezinando, he gets a little wild on the feet. He's got good pressure, but Daniil Donchenko, against pressure, he actually pressures the pressurer. Whenever, like Matt Dixon, his whole thing in the build-up to The Ultimate Fighter, he pressured the shit out of Alex Sanchez, I know his last name's Sanchez. He pressured the shit out of him, tried to pressure Daniil, ended up getting clipped a bunch and finished in the first round. Daniil, he cuts people open really bad, he hits really hard, he's really young, he's really explosive, and overall I just liked his performances more on The Ultimate Fighter, and I think that he fought better comp even at that on The Ultimate Fighter. And he's got some decent wins on the regional scene as well. Some like okay-ish wins, 6-0, 7-2, those types of wins. Rodrigo Sezinando, I don't know, I just wasn't the hugest fan, I guess you could say, of his Contender Series performance. Anyways, I don't know if Daniil will finish Rodrigo nonetheless. I think he'll win a decision. I think he'll beat Rodrigo, because Rodrigo is pretty tough, and maybe Rodrigo swings the tides a little bit near the end of round 2 into round 3, maybe. But I think Daniil Donchenko at least will do more damage in the first 2 rounds, shove off some takedowns. But yeah, I'm picking Daniil Donchenko to win. We move to Montserrat Rendon versus Alice Pereira. I'm going to pick Pereira to win this one over Montserrat Rendon. It is a little interesting just because of how young Alice Pereira is, and usually fighters this young don't usually do all that well, at least early on. Raul is the only example of like a really young kid doing somewhat decent, and in the UFC level, of course, he was fighting a bit of cannage a little bit, in his debut, Jay Perrin. I think Montserrat Rendon is not really all that good, though. She's very clearly losing to Daria Zalesniakova, who I don't rate at all. Her only win in the UFC is Tamiris Vidal, and I honestly thought that was low-key kind of a robbery. If memory serves me right, I thought that Tamiris Vidal did do more. The biggest rise for concern in this fight is going to be Montserrat trying to grapple Alice Pereira. Montserrat on the feet is pretty bread and butter, pretty basic boxing fundamentals, just a lot of straight punches down the pipe. That's it, trying to run a double leg, trying to run a single leg, trying to get the clinch against the cage. That's really her whole game. Alice Pereira, not to be mixed with Alex Pereira's sister, who I believe is also named Alice. What is his sister? Aline. Her name is Aline, so one letter off. So it's not like, you know. But Alice Pereira, from what I've seen, I haven't seen a lot, you know, of her fights. There's one full fight footage from the crowd that's pretty shit quality. And then there's a lot of, like, there's some highlights of her beating the shit out of some, like, really level opponents, I'll be honest with you. But she's beating them how you should. 15-second KO, first round TKO. She goes to a decision, which was 5 rounds. She's been 5 rounds before, albeit against a 12-8-1 opponent, which, you know, could cause rise for concern. But also, I don't think Montserrat Rendon is really that good. That also shows me Alice Pereira has cardio. So, and she, I'm pretty sure, is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. She's got pretty wicked striking. She's got really long arms. I have 70 on there. It's actually 71, excuse me. But her arms are really long. She's got really good range work. She works really well at a distance. She just looks a bit better by the eye test than Montserrat Rendon. And also, it's not like Montserrat Rendon has all this incredible amount of experience. She only has 7 fights in her entire career, 2 of which are in the UFC, which she arguably lost both of them against mid-level opponents. So, yeah, I don't really think Montserrat Rendon. And she's also 36. She's old as shit. She's very inactive. When was that? I feel like the Daria Lesniakova fight was last year. That was in March of 2024. So she's been out of the ring for a while. So, yeah, I'm definitely not picking Montserrat Rendon. I will be picking Alice Pereira to win. We move to Alessandro Costa versus Alden Coria. I'm going to be picking Alessandro Costa over Alden Coria. Mostly due to the fact this is going to be short notice for Alden Coria. This is actually a step-in for Edgar Suarez, which Suarez Costa is going to be such a badass fight. Alden he's not bad. Don't get me wrong, I'm seeing some people saying that he's bad. He's not bad. It's just I haven't seen him against the level of competition that I'd like to see him against if he's stepping up on short notice against a guy like Alessandro Costa. You know what I mean? I'm not a huge fan of that. Not a huge fan of that. His last opponent he fought, Ramon Orpineda, was 4-7. In the LFA, or was he ever? What is his record in the LFA? He's 5-2 in LFA, to be fair. The 2 opponents that he fought that were undefeated besides Jesse Martinelli, he lost to pretty brutally, rear naked, and then beat by decision. Yeah, I just feel like I've seen Alessandro against better competition and do more against better competition. Alessandro had Steve Erceg on the ropes before it was cool, before it was like the natural thing to do against Steve Erceg. He did it before Ode Osborne, he did it before Kai Car-France, he did it before anybody. He hurt Steve Erceg really bad in round 2, mounted him, and he's got really good grappling. His only 2 losses in the UFC was that Steve Erceg fight, which he did win a round in, and then in his debut, it was his debut, yeah, against fucking Amir Albazi, who's a top fucking 6 flyweight challenger. He's very explosive on the feet, really good low kicks. He literally shut down Kevin Borjas with a single low kick. He finished Kevin Borjas when guys like Joshua Van and Suma Dwergy couldn't, or Lazy Boy for that matter even. Yeah, Alessandro Costa is kind of gnarly. He hasn't fought in a while, to be fair, which is a little worrying. His last fight was that Kevin Borjas fight in May of last year. He's had 2 canceled fights since then. One of which was not his fault. The most recent one with Suarez was not his fault, of course, because Suarez pulled out and he's still fighting. Alden Coria, he's got some decent boxing. He's got really nasty knees up the middle. He can time really well. He's got some decent grappling. I just think Alessandro Costa can do a bit more everywhere. I think he's explosive. He's hard to deal with, especially with a guy like Alden Coria, who's going to be going a huge step up in competition from a guy like Roman Orpindea, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a huge step up from that guy to then fighting Alessandro Costa on fucking short notice. You know what I mean? It's just it's definitely a little bit of a change of pace, and it's not like he had a fight already booked. This is super short notice for him. I just think that Alden Coria is going to get caught on the feet, maybe get taken down a couple times, even though he's got good grappling. Alessandro Costa runs the pipe really well on his single legs. He transfers them into double legs. He transitions very well. All in all, I think Alessandro Costa is just better. So I will be going with Alessandro Costa over Alden Coria. I'll pick him by submission over Alden Coria. Fuck it. We move to Zachary Reese versus Sedriques Dumas. I'm going to be picking Zachary Reese over Sedriques Dumas. It's just going to be a lot of this card meat. I just think that Zach is better than Sedriques. That's basically it. Yeah, Sedriques Dumas, in his past couple of performances, has honestly been fucking dreadful to watch. I'll be honest with you. In his last 3 fights, honestly, his whole career in the UFC has been really shit. He had a really good performance on the Contender Series. Everyone remembers that he got a really quick submission. He gets choked out really in his debut against a short notice Josh Fremd, which that loss is aging really well, dude. He beats Cody Brundage and Abu Azaitar in 2 of maybe the worst fights I've ever seen in my life. They were both so bland and boring. Cody Brundage literally quit against him. But somehow Sedriques still took him to a decision. You know what I mean? Loses very easily to Nursultan Ruziboev. Loses very easily to Michal Oleksiejczuk. Arguably loses to Dennis Tululin. Let's not forget this. He was getting his ass fucking whooped by Dennis Tululin in the 2nd and 3rd round, and they still somehow gave this fucking cunt the decision. So, outside of that, Sedriques has so many out of the ring troubles. I can't even go in depth in. He's fucking hiding in doghouses. Yeah, I just think on the feet, Sedriques gives off the vibe. Like, if you just look at him, it's like, oh, dude, he's probably fucking nasty on the feet. He's got a wild build, 6'2", 79-inch reach. He's got all these tattoos, you know what I mean? He looks like a fucking banger, you know what I mean? He looks like he's fucking ready to go. And then you find out he's one of the most bland, boring motherfuckers you've ever seen in your life. He's a wrestler who's not even good at wrestling in one of the shittest divisions. It's not like Zachary Reese is all that good. I think Zachary Reese is pretty mid as well. His wins in the UFC are against Julian Marquez, Jose Daniel Medina, and Duško Todorović. He has 1 finish in the UFC. And he has 2 arguably more brutal losses than whatever Sedriques has faced. The knockout against Azamat Bekaev. But also, Azamat Bekaev is good. You know what I mean? Azamat Bekaev is good. And Cody Brundage, which was just a very freak coincidence, he dropped Cody Brundage, lost a scramble, ended up on bottom. And that's another. Zachary has submissions off his back to face Sedriques with, if Sedriques even does take him down, which I don't think he will, because Sedriques is mid as shit. And on the feet, I just favor Zachary Reese. He hits harder than Sedriques Dumas. He uses kicks more to his advantage, kicks the body really well, head kicks really well, and he has a really gnarly uppercut, which we have seen do Sedriques Dumas extremely dirty. He's been dropped with an uppercut in 2 of his 3 losses in the UFC. Dropped by Michal Oleksiejczuk, did a little fucking dance and then got knocked down. And then against Nursultan, did get eye poked, but then he got brutalized with an uppercut because his guard is really, really loose. So I will be picking Zachary Reese to knock out Sedriques Dumas in the 1st or 2nd round. I just think Sedriques Dumas is incredibly mid. And I don't really think that he's UFC level at all, I'll be honest with you. From the fights that we've seen, the people that he's beaten in the UFC as well. I know he has a win over Cody Brundage. Zachary Reese lost to him. If you want to have the most dreadful 15 minutes of your fucking life, watch Sedriques Dumas versus Cody Brundage on that Topuria versus Emmett card. You will hate your fucking life. So that is when that happened, right? I believe so. I believe that was in that Jacksonville card. Anyways, Zachary Reese on the feet, kicking to the body, uppercutting to the face, overall hitting really hard. Sedriques Dumas has a really suspect chin for some reason. I'm picking Zachary Reese Not saying that Zachary Reese doesn't have a suspect chin, but Sedriques Dumas' offense on the feet is so abysmal. I'm picking Zachary Reese to win. We move to Jesús Aguilar versus Luis Gurule. I'm going to pick Luis Gurule over Jesús Aguilar. It is somewhat close. I think that Jesús Aguilar has a really big weakness in the grappling department. Outside of a guillotine, his takedown defense is actually pretty dog shit. I'm going to be honest with you. And he doesn't, like, if you look at Jesús Aguilar's stats, he doesn't really land a whole lot. He doesn't do a whole lot. He had he has two really good performances in the UFC, that being the, not the Mateus Mendonça, that's one I'm going to bring up as a bad one. The Shannon Ross performance, of course, was a really good performance. He chinned Shannon Ross in maybe 17 seconds, and then he choked out Stuart Nickel in like under a minute, right? Those are two really good performances. His losses were pretty bad. He got completely smudged by Rafael Esteban. He got just out-skilled by Tetsuro Taira, which, to be fair, those are two good losses to have. But his Mateus Mendonça performance was honestly fucking garbage, and he arguably should have lost to Mateus Mendonça. If you don't remember who Mateus Mendonça is, he's the blue-haired Brazilian guy. He was easily taking down Jesús Aguilar with no repercussions coming from Jesús Aguilar. Nothing coming back. Arguably should have won based off rounds 2 and 3. Honestly, he did more work in those 2 rounds. And Luis Gurule, although he did get shinned by Ode Osborne, which, to be fair, Ode Osborne had a really good performance against Steve Erceg. Luis Gurule dominated that first round against Ode Osborne. Made him land basically fucking nothing in that first round. And you look at the performance against Nick Piccinini on the Contender Series, Luis Gurule's got really good cardio. He's got pretty decent stand-up when he's going up against someone who just kind of swings wildly, doesn't have a lot of technique behind what they're doing, Jesús Aguilar, and can grapple them. Like, Luis Gurule was doing some decent work against Nick Piccinini in the grappling as well. Like, he defended a lot of fucking takedowns. And also, on the feet, he just did more. So, I would be picking Luis Gurule over Jesús Aguilar. I feel like Jesús Aguilar is he's just a bit too wild for me to pick him against a guy like Luis Gurule, who I think is just a bit more technical. And also has more technical ability in the grappling, which is a place that Jesús Aguilar is pretty weak in. Jesús Aguilar, besides the guillotine, doesn't really offer much in takedown defense territory. I will be picking Luis Gurule. It's also just like a size thing. Jesús Aguilar, he's not even 5'4". He's honestly probably like 5'3", 5'2". So, I'm going to be picking Luis Gurule. I know I've said that quite a few times. On the feet, he's a bit more technical. He's got power. So does Jesús Aguilar has more power in this fight, to be fair to him. But he just doesn't have that technique behind it that I'd like him to with a guy with his power. So, Luis Gurule, I'll go with the decision via grappling, and when it gets to the feet, kind of pressing him against the fence, kind of making him feel small, and then pushing him against the fence, using the clinch and that sort of thing. I'm picking Luis Gurule. We move to Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos. I'm going to pick Tatiana Suarez over Amanda Lemos. Mostly because of the grappling. Not mostly. It's the grappling as a whole. Amanda Lemos, her grappling has always been a really vocal weak point of her career. Getting subbed by Verna Janjidoba. Completely out-grappled by Zhang Wei Li. She was low-key. Her and Dern is a really close fight. If you look back at it, her and Dern is actually pretty fucking close. If you, like, kind of rewatch it. Rounds 1 and 3. Round 2, of course, is Amanda Lemos' round. She drops the fuck out of Mackenzie Dern. Round 1 and 3 were very, very close. Very close in favor of Mackenzie Dern. Because here's the thing, Amanda Lemos does shoot takedowns of her own as well. She won't against Tatiana Suarez, obviously. Maybe she does. She out-grappled the shit out of Yasmin Lucindo. Maybe she's feeling herself. But I just think that Amanda, her takedown defense has always just been so weak. I feel like she tries to do too many submission attempts as defense instead of actually pushing the head down, trying to spread the sprawl, get distance between the thighs to try and stop the hands collapsing together. And Tatiana Suarez is mid. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't think that Tatiana Suarez is all that good. Her grappling is good enough to beat Amanda Lemos. If she was able to out-grapple and win the first round against Zhang Weili, which she did do, even though that first round was still kind of close, wasn't it? If I'm remembering correctly. Round 1. It was still kind of close. But Tatiana got the takedown pretty early, held her down the entire round. After that, of course, it kind of went all the way downhill for Tatiana Suarez. Did really fuck all after that. Actually got out-grappled by Tatiana Suarez, or by Zhang Weili, excuse me. The stand-up, I think that Tatiana Suarez's takedown threat will kind of put the thought in the head of Amanda Lemos, make her not throw as much. She already doesn't throw a whole lot. She actually lands less than she absorbs per minute, stat-wise. So, yeah. I think Amanda Lemos' last performance was also dull as shit. She had to completely out-grapple Yasmin Lucinda to a decision. I don't really think Yasmin Lucinda's all that good either. She had a really... who did Yasmin Lucinda just fight? Didn't she just fight Angela Hill? And that was kind of a weak performance. Like, she very clearly won, but it was still kind of weak. Yeah, I'm picking Tatiana Suarez just to out-grapple Amanda Lemos. She's done it to other girls. You look at the Jessica Andrade performance, completely beat the shit out of her. Montana De La Rosa beat the shit out of her. Carla Esparza, Alexa Grasso. I know these are older performances all the way back in 2018, 7 years ago. We're digging deep. But, like, she has that in her back pocket. I know she's older. I know she's had surgery. I know she's fought, cancer before and stuff like that. But it's still got to be there, right? It's still got to be there. I'm picking Tatiana Suarez. We move to Claudio Puelles versus Joaquim Silva. I'm gonna pick Claudio Puelles. Unironically, I'm gonna pick him over Joaquim Silva. Listen, I don't even really know what my reason is. Honestly, I got a feeling. Man, I got a feeling. No, but seriously, I think Claudio Puelles, he hasn't fought in a while, neither has Joaquim Silva. But I thought that Claudio Puelles did shockingly really good against Fares Ziam than a lot of people expected. I'm actually going to go back to that fight and look at the stats there really quick. But on the feet, obviously, Joaquim Silva is going to have the direct advantage over Claudio Puelles. That is mostly due in part to Claudio Puelles just not being entirely that great on the feet. He doesn't do a whole lot, honestly. But I thought the stat line of Claudio Puelles getting 7 of 13 takedowns on Fares Ziam was actually really shocking. He did really well in the grappling over Claudio Puelles, and he looked really strong against Fares Ziam. Joaquim Silva, he's older. His last performance against Drakkar Klose, he didn't look all that great. Claudio Puelles presses forward. He's a big guy for the division. People forget that. Claudio Puelles is a kind of big fella for lightweight. And Joaquim Silva's really short, stocky. He hits really hard, but he isn't really technical. His career moment was, of course, hurting Arman Tsarukyan. That's what a lot of people know Joaquim Silva for. But yeah, I don't think he's all that great. He's old and inactive. Claudio Puelles at least is young and inactive. He's lost against Dan Hooker and Fares Ziam. You know what I mean? And his other loss was also, who was that to? Marvin Bravo. That was his debut in the UFC in 2016. You know what I mean? He beat Felipe Silva. He beat Marcos Moreira. He beat Jordan Levitt. I mean, Jordan Levitt's good. Jordan Levitt's not bad. He submitted Chris Grutzmacher. He submitted Clay Guida. Joaquim took Clay Guida to a decision, by the way. Later in Clay Guida's career. I don't think Joaquim Silva has really that stand-up presence. He hits really hard, but he doesn't have like a lot of like aura on the feet, I guess you could say. And also his grappling. What's a Joaquim Silva takedown defense? What are we looking at here? This low-key may make or break my pick, I'm not going to lie. 69. It's not too great. I think Claudio Puelles, I just think he can make more improvements from fight to fight. I think he can make more improvements than Joaquim Silva. There's also that. So, I'll pick Claudio Puelles over Joaquim Silva. Via submission. Fuck. We move to the featured prelim. Jose Daniil Medina versus Duško Todorović. Oh. That is my guttural reaction to this fucking matchup. Because here's the thing. Duško is a minus 400. I'll pick Duško Todorović, but here's my issue. He should beat Jose Medina. Jose Medina is garbage. He is fucking terrible. That's the thing. He is fucking garbage. Like, that's where we're at right now in the U.S. Like, we can openly say this, that a signed fighter in Jose Daniil Medina who has not won anything in his UFC career, on the Contender Series, in the UFC, he has done nothing but get fucking worked. 30-27 by Zachary Reese. 30-27 by Magomed Gajiasulov. And then he gets fucking destroyed by Ateba Gaultier. And he's still in the UFC. Duško should win. He's a more well-rounded mixed martial artist. He's got grappling. He hits really hard. But he also fucking blows. He's chinny as shit. To be fair, he did better than Jose did against Zachary Reese, in my humble opinion. Actually, let me pull up the stats from that fight, because that was actually kind of close. Yeah, Duško actually did well. He took him down a bunch. And he hung on the feet with Zachary Reese. He didn't really get hurt all that much. Jose was getting 10-8'd in the first and second round. My big fear is that Jose weathers a storm and maybe finds a late finish. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Duško should finish Jose Daniil Medina early in this fight. Duško has almost a 100% finish rate, if memory serves me correct. So does Jose Daniil Medina, to be fair. But Duško, he also has 11 finishes. Jose has 10. He's knocked out Michel Pereira before on the regional scene. That was a while ago. He beat the shit out of Jaquan Townsend. He beat the shit out of Maki Pitolo. Beat the ever-living shit out of Jordan Wright. And the guys he's losing to are good. Ponaheli Soriano, Gregory Rodriguez, Chidi Njokuani, CLD, Mansour Abdul Malik. Like, even Zachary Reese. These are not Jose Daniil Medina level guys. These are actually somewhat capable middleweights, most of them. Like, Zachary Reese is the lowest level of these guys, obviously. But yeah, they're all like really explosive guys. Jose Daniil Medina is just a fluffy guy. He's just kind of, he's got flab on him. He's in better shape now, to be fair. But he doesn't hit hard at all. At least on the feet. He doesn't pose any threat early on. He gets hit a lot. He absorbs a lot of strikes. What are the numbers of amount of strikes Jose Daniil Medina absorbs in a minute? What are we looking at here? He absorbs 5 strikes for every 2 he lands. Duško hits hard as shit. I'm picking Duško Todorović. We move to the start of the main card. Santiago Luna versus Kwang Lee. I'll pick Santiago Luna by first or second round knockout. This is gonna be one of the guys that gets a big pop from the crowd in Santiago Luna, and I'm a huge fan of this guy, honestly. Mostly due to his nickname. Look at that fucking nickname. Border Boy. Anyways, let's talk about actual technique here. Kwang Lee has had a pretty mid UFC experience so far, losing his first 2 fights. Lost on the feet to Chris Gutierrez on short notice. It is what it is. Got beat up pretty bad by Long Zhao. The guy that fought Chang Oli, he fought, who did he just fight? Su Young Yu. He just fought Su Young Yu on that Shanghai card. Kwang Lee got knocked out bad by Zhao Long as well. He got a win in his last fight over Gaston Bolaños. Grappled the shit out of him. I'm picking Santiago Luna because most of Kwang Lee's success is going to be in the grappling in his career. He's more a grappler than anything, which is why the Chris Gutierrez performance was somewhat good, because he actually took down Chris Gutierrez a couple times and held him down for a significant amount. I believe he won the second round using just grappling. But on the feet, Kwang Lee is a sitting duck. And Santiago Luna, from what I've seen, he's fought some competent competition on the regional scene as well. You know, a 6-1 24-year-old Russian prospect in Magomed Baudiev. 3-1, 2-0-1, 1-0, 1-0. Now, his last opponent, Desmond Manbat, which is what a lot of people have watched, I'm assuming, he was 4-6. He treated him like a 4-6 opponent. You know what I mean? He has a 100% finish rate, and he has a lot of submissions. He's got really good double legs, really good timing on takedowns, really good pressure, really good back-taking ability. A lot of his finishes are rear naked chokes. And he also has just really potent stand-up. He hits really hard, uses straight punches really well, cuts off the cage really well. And Kwang Lee, from what I've seen on the feet, is a sitting duck for the most part. If you take out his legs, which I don't know if Santiago Luna uses a lot of low kicks, but if you watch his tape, you should realize Kwang Lee is a bit susceptible to that. But if you cut him off, jab his face off a little bit, I think Santiago Luna should have a bit of success here over Kwang Lee. And it also helps that Santiago Luna is heavily well-rounded, has a really good wrestling base, as aforementioned, has some good judo as well. We saw that in, I forget which fight it is, but he hurts the guy. He kind of falls into a clinch exchange and then absolutely ragdolls him with a hip throw, or a hip toss, rather. Santiago Luna is actually pretty good. And Kwang Lee, he's all right. He's an all right guy, but, you know, he has some holes in his game that I think that Santiago can heavily exploit. And Santiago, even though he's taking this on short notice, which that is true, Kwang Lee was supposed to fight who? Who's he? David Martinez, who's fighting Rob Font in the co-main event, obviously. Santiago, you know, he's young. You know, he doesn't cut a lot of weight. He's big as well for the weight class. He's going to be a lot bigger than Kwang Lee. I imagine he's a pretty big guy. So I'll pick Santiago Luna over Kwang Lee. We move to Alexander Hernandez versus Carlos Diego Ferreira, CDF. I'm going to pick Carlos Diego Ferreira as an underdog over Alexander Hernandez. Listen, Alexander's good. He had a really good performance over Chase Hooper. Carlos isn't Chase Hooper, though. That's my big issue with this fight. When you look at the win streak that Alexander Hernandez is on, it's against some two low-level opponents in Kurt Hollabaugh and, you know, Austin Hubbard, and he's going to split decisions with both of them, right? He had a unanimous over Kurt Hollabaugh, but that really should have been a split decision. Of course, finished Chase Hooper. Carlos is just different than those. I have this listed as middleweight. This is lightweight. Obviously, this is not a middleweight. I don't feel like checking out the other slides, but this is a lightweight bout. I don't know why it says middleweight. Anyways, Carlos, I know he had a really bad performance against Grant Dawson. That's more kudos to Grant Dawson than it is a detriment to Carlos Diego Ferreira. Honestly, that just shows how good Grant Dawson is as of right now. Which, by the way, Grant Dawson, get some fucking fight news, buddy. Anyways, I feel like Alexander Hernandez fighting Carlos Diego Ferreira on short notice. Carlos Diego Ferreira is just a better version of Hubbard and Hollabaugh. And they both gave Alexander Hernandez extreme troubles, especially as the fight went on. And Carlos, if you know anything about Carlos Diego Ferreira, he is a fighter that just builds so much as the fight goes on. And he uses a lot of grappling as well. He will mix in a lot of takedowns on people. He's very crafty on the feet. He's probably going to drop the first round to Alexander Hernandez. I think this fight will resemble a lot of what the Mateusz Rombetsky fight was, which was Alexander, it's kind of competitive, evens in the first round. Alexander has the biggest moment in the round. Maybe he hurts CDF a little bit, and CDF visibly kind of gets wobbled a little bit. But then as the fight keeps going on, and this has been a telltale sign of Alexander Hernandez's entire fucking career, was he slows down, and then he starts losing. And he can get broken very easily, mentally especially. God damn, what bars is that? You look at the Bill Algeo fight. You look at the Billy Quarantillo fight. You look at like even a Damon Jackson fight. Damon Jackson is mentally breaking you, bro? I know those are all 4 at featherweight, and Hernandez is a different guy at 155, man. You know, he's going to split decision with Hubbard, Kurt Hallbaugh, and he's taking Jim Miller to decision, man. But, like, Carlos is different. He's just better than Jim Miller, Hubbard, Hallbaugh, and Chase Hooper. He just is. At the end of the day, he is. He's very crafty on the feet, uses a jab really well, jabs the face off of people on it. He jabbed the fuck out of Mateusz Rąbecki. Beat the shit out of him. Fraud checked before. It wasn't a fraud check. It was a reality check. I forgot to mention that. But anyways. And he mixes in takedowns really well. And if you mix in takedowns against Alexander Hernandez, get that thought in his head. Make him drop his hands even just a little bit. Start jabbing him up. Catch him when he's coming in because Alexander is explosive. He does hit hard. And he relies that sometimes. Because Carlos is not going to be a guy that's trying to rush in to anything like Chase Hooper did, where Alexander can counter-strike, land a perfect counter shot that drops him. Carlos Diego Ferreira is very methodical about everything. And it's not like Hernandez poses an insane grappling threat. He hits really hard. He's really explosive. That's about it when it comes to Alexander Hernandez. He kind of falls off a cliff when you kind of get off that pathway of talking about him. Carlos Diego Ferreira, at the end of the day, I think he's fought better competition. In his past couple of fights, he beat the shit out of Mateusz Rąbecki. I think Mateusz Rąbecki is a hell of a more fighter than Alexander Hernandez. He finished Rąbecki when guys like Chris Duncan couldn't, when guys like Muktabek Oralbai couldn't. You know what I mean? Carlos did it. He actually did it. So, Alexander Hernandez, he's on a roll right now. I think he's going to get a little bit checked. Again, that's happened many a times in his career. Carlos Diego Ferreira hasn't fought in a while, to be fair to him. Not a while. He hasn't fought since January, but he was supposed to fight Bobby Green. It's not like he's completely dry. He was in a training camp. That fight fell through during fight week. So, you know, Carlos is still in shape. So, I'll pick Carlos Diego Ferreira being crafty on the feet post round 1, using his grappling, kind of getting that takedown threat in his head, maybe out-grappling Hernandez, striking him a little bit. I think Carlos honestly finds a finish in the 3rd round over Alexander Hernandez. So, I'll pick Carlos Diego Ferreira. We move to Kelvin Gastelum versus Dustin Stoltzfus. I'm going to pick Kelvin Gastelum over Dustin Stoltzfus, obviously. Yeah, I just think Kelvin Gastelum's a bit of a better fighter than Dustin Stoltzfus, obviously. That's not that really hard of a analysis to come to. I'm a little worried, maybe, about the grappling threat that Dustin Stoltzfus has, and I will say this. Kelvin is pretty fucking fat for this fight. I know that, you know, he's fat in this picture. He's fucking huge for this fight. I'm not gonna lie to you. He is really, you can tell that he knows he's not cutting any weight. He's fucking fat. He actually kind of looks about the same. This photo just kind of right here kind of threw me off. I'm pulling it up on my other, if I could fucking, you know, open it. Jesus. Anyways, striking ability, obviously, Kelvin Gastelum, he's pretty good. You know what I mean? You look at some of his recent performances and his wins, especially at that. His wins are, you know, he's beating Daniel Rodriguez in a mostly striking battle, but he did use some grappling to win that fight. But on the feet, it was pretty competitive, and he was actually beating Daniel Rodriguez for the most part. And Joe Pyfer, he won the 3rd round. He actually did some really solid work against Joe Pyfer as that fight went on. A Joe Pyfer that, I know Dustin Stoltzfus technically has a win over him, but Joe Pyfer, like right now, we can all agree Joe Pyfer would fucking spark out Dustin Stoltzfus. I think we can all agree on that. Kelvin took a lot of damage in that 1st round, bounced right back up, and started beating Joe Pyfer as that fight went on. Dustin is not as explosive as Joe Pyfer. He's nowhere near as explosive at that. He's a methodical, kind of bread and butter, 1s and 2s heavy kind of guy on the feet, trying to get into double legs, trying to off-balance you into a trip. That's his sort of thing. Now, I know Kelvin always has issues with grappling. That's kind of why I'm a little bit irked out by this matchup, because Dustin Stoltzfus, I've seen him submit guys before. I've seen him submit Punahele Soriano. I've seen him dominate Marc-Andre Barriault on the ground and then spark him out cold on the feet. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen him do that. But I'm also seeing Kelvin Gastelum he beats Chris Curtis. He beats Daniel Rodriguez. Is Dustin Stoltzfus really as good as Sean Brady, which Kelvin went to a third round with? I mean, he basically did as good as fucking Leon Edwards, for that matter. I just think Dustin is a little slow on takedown entries. I think Kelvin is good enough to kind of get away from him. I think he's going to be able to keep it standing and land big shots on the feet and shin Dustin Stoltzfus. That's what I envision happening here. Kelvin being able to see the takedowns coming, because Dustin Stoltzfus isn't entirely fast. He's kind of, even though he's 33, even though they're same age, Dustin kind of moves like a geriatric old man at times, and I'm not a huge fan of that. So yeah, I'll pick Kelvin Gastelum over Dustin Stoltzfus, kind of just doing better on the feet, knocking him out, clipping him with something, because that's another thing. Dustin Stoltzfus is chinny. And if anyone's going to win a grid off between these two, it's definitely going to be Kelvin, and I like that. And he's also got 5 rounds of experience before. He's gone 5 rounds a shit ton of times. I know that's old as shit, but I think Kelvin's still got that dog in him. He just needs to find a right opponent to kind of unleash it on. So I will pick Kelvin Gastelum to knock out Dustin Stoltzfus in the first round. Shuck off some takedowns on the feet, kind of clip Dustin with something that he can't quite take, and knock him out against the fence. We move to the featured fight, Rafa Garcia versus Jared Gordon. I'm going to pick Jared Gordon over Rafa Garcia. Is Jared Gordon an underdog? Don't tell me he is. No, he's a huge favorite. All right, I was about to say. Maybe they fucking inflate the Mexican, but yeah, I think the odds are right on this fight. I think Rafa Garcia is okay. He's pretty decent at fighting. I just think Jared Gordon's a bit tougher, bit grittier on the feet, can impose his will on people, and I've seen him against just such better competition than Rafa Garcia. I'm seeing Rafa Garcia insanely struggle with Vink Pichel, Clay Guida even. You know, I mean, I'm seeing him lose to Chris Grutzmacher. I'm seeing him get beat up by Drakkar Klose. I'm seeing this happen. Jared Gordon, and to be fair, Jared Gordon's on a bit of a streak right now. I mean, is it 2 in a row? No. He lost, quote unquote, to Nasrat Haqparast, right? That's like a thing. But arguably beat Nasrat Haqparast. Arguably beat Paddy Pimblett. He beat Leonardo Santos. He beat Mark Madsen. He beat Thiago Moises. Beat the shit out of Thiago Moises of that. Knocked him the fuck out. Mark Madsen, same thing. Joe Selecki, Danny Chavez, Chris Fishgold. The only people he's losing to, Carlos Diego Ferreira, Joaquim Silva all the way back in 2018, gets clipped with a punch, gets knocked out. Charles Oliveira, Grant Dawson. I know Rafa has a similar loss. And then Paddy Pimblett and Nasrat, which are arguable robberies. He was beating King Green. He's beating Bobby Green. Bobby Green. On the feet, Jared Gordon's better than Rafa Garcia. I think he hits harder. I think he's a bit more technical. I think he's a bit more tricky on the feet. He's a tricky customer. And Rafa Garcia, he's got some decent grappling, but I think Jared Gordon honestly kind of can deal with that with his clinch work. He's really gnarly in the clinch. He presses people really hard against the fence, lands brutal hooks, lands elbows, lands knees. And Rafa slows down as fights goes on. You look at that Vink Pichel fight. I know it was in Mexico City, Elevation. He slowed down a shit ton and arguably had some. He lost was it the third or second? I think he lost the second and won the third just because Vink didn't do enough. Jared Gordon's going to do a whole lot in this fight. Whatever Rafa Garcia does, Jared will do 2 times that. And I don't know if Rafa Garcia has the knockout power needed to kind of upset Jared Gordon, if you will. Rafa Garcia, he's got a couple. How many knockouts does he have? I watch me be in. He has 1 knockout on his entire resume, and it was on the regional scene against LaRue Burley, which was all the way back in 2018. He's more of a grappler than he is a striker. Jared Gordon is really good at grappling. He's got really good takedown defense. He's really gnarly in the clinch. Got better striking. I'm picking Jared Gordon over Rafa Garcia. Lock it in. We move to the co-main event of the evening. Rob Font versus David Martinez. I will be picking Rob Font over David Martinez. I have no idea why Rob Font's only a minus 130 over David Martinez. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even think David Martinez is the best prospect that Rob Font has ever fought. He's beaten two better guys in John Matsumoto and Adrian Yanez. But what do I know? Yeah, I think on the feet, Rob Font's just going to out-volume him. David Martinez is not, like, super low output to where it's, like, noticeable, but, like, there are more moments where he's staring than actually doing a whole lot. His Contender Series performance is pretty wishy-washy. If you watch highlights, you'll be like, oh my god, what great combination work from David Martinez. You know what I mean? Oh my god, look at that combination he just threw on, who the fuck? He fought a dude with like a fucking blue smile in the back of his head. I don't know. Let me actually look that up on Tapology. But anyways, he beat him on the Contender Series. It was back and forth, somewhat competitive. David Martinez just landed the better shots, I guess you could say. Wow, my fucking computer is buggy as shit. But Rob Font on the feet is going to be just so much more active. And that's really it at the end of the day. Rob Font is way more active on the feet, and he's got decent wrestling. And David Martinez isn't that much of a grappler. He's really boxing heavy, really kickboxing heavy, kicks the legs. He's going to get walked down and beat up by Rob Font. Because here's the thing. David Martinez is not going to... He doesn't... Like, Rob Font is not going to have that respect for David Martinez early on. He didn't have respect for John Matsumoto. He clipped him with a fake glove touch early on in the fight. He's going to do the same thing to David Martinez. He's going to... Because he's like, these guys are young. They're not fucking ready. I'm going to touch them with something, see how they react. And David Martinez... Bless myself. Anyways, he just walks people down. That's really it. I don't think David Martinez has like the power of Cheeto or the power of Aldo or like, I don't know. You need like a certain thing about you to beat Rob Font. If Kyler Phillips didn't have it, if John Matsumoto didn't have it, if Adrian Yanez didn't have it, I don't think you have it. You don't have the power of Cheeto. You don't have the power of Aldo. You're not a technical grappler like Coria, who's also dangerous on the feet, or Davison, who's just better. You know what I mean? Like, David Martinez doesn't do anything better than Rob Font. At the end of the day, he doesn't. He's going to get out-volumed, outstruck. If it gets into the grappling, Rob Font's a better grappler. I don't know. I just think David Martinez has taken up a way too big of a step up, and he's also on short notice. I know he was training on this fight card against Quang Lee, obviously, as aforementioned, but yeah, I don't know. Rob Font was supposed to be fighting Raul Rosas Jr. He's already got grappling hours in for just that guy. It's a completely different opponent guy for both, but Rob Font's fought guys like David Martinez. He's fought young up-and-comers, so I favor Rob Font over David Martinez any day of the fucking week. Lock it in. We move to the main event of the evening. Diego Lopes versus John Silva. I'm picking John Silva. I don't know how to tell you guys. I'm picking fucking John Silva, baby. Yeah, it's not really... I don't think you guys are that shocked, honestly. I really think that John Silva can emulate a lot of what Volkanovski did well against Diego Lopes, which is, one, a lot of footwork, a lot of lateral footwork, not, linear footwork, which is what Volk got caught with eventually against Diego. If you move laterally against Diego Lopes, which is what Volk was doing most of the time, other than when Diego went first and he backed him up, he did really well. Moving laterally, kicking the leg, kicking the body. All in all, it can sort of short-circuit Diego Lopes a little bit, and two, the timing of entrances. Diego Lopes, if he's not fighting, a Brian Ortega who you can see that he's moving in for a strike 2 seconds before he does it, Volk's very fast, very explosive, very agile with his entrances. He times them very well off of offbeats. John Silva's pretty similar in a way. And John Silva does another thing that Volk does pretty well, is he baits. He baits people a lot. He traps people when he's moving forward, and then he does a little bit of a step back. A little bit of a kickback step, brushes you over with a right hand or a body kick. He forces things out of you, which we know Diego Lopes, he's willing to throw at anything that moves. He's like a bull in a way. I think John Silva's going to play a bit of a matador in this scenario. Not talking Ilya. I'm talking John Silva a little bit here. But anyways, it can get a little tricky in areas. I will say I am interested to see how John Silva does in a 5-round fight if we do get there, which personally I don't think we will. I think John Silva will TKO Diego Lopes in round 3 or 2. I think it really just comes down to the openness of Diego Lopes on the feet and seeing shots that, Volkanovski's able to land on him. Even a Brian Ortega in round 3 is able to land on Diego Lopes. I'm not a huge fan of that going up against a guy that's as explosive and powerful and dynamic as John Silva, who also, if a fight isn't grappling, because I will say, in the Bryce Mitchell fight, you can visually see John Silva start to slow down a little bit on the feet, but he still throws everything at 100%. You can see that in the John Silva-Bryce Mitchell fight. You can see him breathing in a little bit, backing up, and then moving forward. If a fight's specifically striking, like a Drew Dober fight, he's perfectly fine. He looks like he could do that for another 2 rounds in the Drew Dober fight. Diego's not going to look to take down John Silva. At the end of the day, Diego Lopes is mostly a slugger. He will only engage in grappling if someone tries to take him down first, like a Gavin Tucker, like a Dan Ige tried to get a takedown and immediately Diego pulled a Darce. But John Silva, I just feel like the shots that Volk hurt Diego with, John would put him on the ground with. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like that would seal the deal if John Silva was able to get in there and hit him with those shots. And he has the same timing on the offbeats that Volk does. Not the same, not exact same, but quite similar tempo. Not quite my tempo, but kind of similar tempo in a way of Volkanovski. And also just kind of stocky build. John gets a lot of his offense through his kicks, not his low kicks, but more so his body kicks into head kicks. He kind of throws them really heavy, which Diego does have good body kick and head kick defense. He really tries to catch them early on. If you throw one, he'll try to catch the next one, which I think John Silva could use to his advantage, seeing as Diego Lopes does try to catch kicks a lot. Feint a kick, go upstairs with a right hand, you know what I mean? Like, just kind of bait the feints out of Diego Lopes. Feint, make him reach, tag him for it, make him pay. You reach, I teach. You know what I mean? John Silva type shit. So, I will say there are moments where I think Diego Lopes can have a lot of success. If John Silva is lazy in the clinch, which sometimes he can be, if you look at a lot of his things, he really likes to set up an uppercut on clinch breaks. If he's looking to just search for that and grab the head of Diego Lopes, he's going to catch about 30 hooks to the body and head. I'm not a huge fan of that if John Silva's looking to do that, because Diego Lopes in the clinch is insanely fucking dangerous because he just throws without reason. He throws like Max Holloway in the final 10 seconds. He'll do it at 4 minutes and 30 seconds in a round. If there's a clinch exchange, he will just do that because he's like, oh, we're fucking scrapping now. I can throw my hands at you. And that's the thing. John Silva, he's not highly volume. He's not a high volume guy, and neither is Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes, a lot of his offense will come in those pocket exchanges. John Silva more so does his work on the outside with kicks and then explodes into combinations in the up close. But John Silva manages distance pretty well, and that was something that Diego Lopes got frustrated with when it came to Alexander Volkanovski, was him on the back foot, being able to tag him at range and then evade, and then tag him at range and then evade. Doing that type of thing to Diego Lopes really frustrates him and puts him in bad positions because he's like, let me fucking punch you in your fucking face. He gets really angry and frustrated if someone's not just standing in front of him willing to get battered for a living. I think John Silva does a good job at distance management. The timing is there, and also the power is also going to be there. I know Diego Lopes has a really good shin. We've seen that heavily in the UFC. He has been finished before. That does need to be mentioned. He did almost get finished by Movsar Evloev in his debut. He's been knocked out twice in his entire career. There's, of course, that one regional fight where he's just on his back and he just gets pounded with ground and pound and then just kind of like goes out for a second. But yeah, I think all in all that João Silva can do what Volkanovski did, but a little bit safer and better, because I think John has a bit of a better chin than Volkanovski, and I think that he just has the edge of being younger at the end of the day. So Diego can pose problems with his presence and overall size in the cage. I will admit that. That is something that I'm looking forward to seeing how João Silva deals with this threat, as Diego is he is the biggest ranked guy at featherweight. Sean Woodson's not ranked yet. He probably never will be just because of how chinny he is. But Diego Lopes is that big, fearful presence at featherweight, that tall, almost 6 foot. He's 5'11", fucking tall and rangy, and he hits really hard. I want to see how João Silva deals with that. I really do. And I can't wait to watch this fight. I think João Silva will get it done. I think the things that he does well are the weaknesses in Diego Lopes's game. Him getting easily frustrated, him getting baited on a lot of things, him not being a really good first goer of things. A lot of his success will go when someone just kind of accidentally falls into range at him when they're going first and they don't back out enough in time and Diego makes them pay for it, or he counters someone right as they're coming in, like Brian Ortega. I don't know. I think all in all, João Silva is a bit of a beast in this division, and I will be interested to see how he deals with this fight, considering that we've seen Caio and Mauricio both lose, and same with Carlos back in April. But anyways, I am going to pick João Silva. I think he will catch Diego with a right overhand, as Diego is kind of backing up, and John kind of baits him in and kind of goes off on the off center, right hook over the top, catches him with it. Diego goes down, and João Silva follows up with some ground and pound. I think João Silva will defeat Diego Lopes. I think it will be nerve-wracking to watch, so I can't wait to watch it. But João Silva for the win. Lock it in. I'm UFC Thoughts. These have been my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC Noche. Lopes vs. Silva on September 13th, 2025. My confident picks reside with Zachary, Reese, Santiago Luna, and in the main event, João Silva. My pre-card rating is a 5 out of 10. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really give a shit about this card outside of the main event. There are not a lot of fights on here that I care about the outcomes of. Unlike UFC Paris, I cared about the outcomes of a lot of those fights, and, 2 of those didn't really go my way, but that's besides the point. The main event is really what everyone's looking forward to. In comparison to a lot of UFC Noches, there's only been 2 other ones. This is definitely the weakest one, honestly. Even weaker than the fight night back in 2023. I thought that card had even more, good fights. Honestly, JDM Kevin Holland was pretty sick for a co-main event, and there were some other fights on there as well. Not that any come to mind, but I remember that there were some sick fights on there as well. UFC Noche suffered a couple pullouts. It should be Raul Rosas in the co-main event, which would have been interesting to break down, but the main event is what everyone's here to see, and I can't wait to watch João Silva versus Diego Lopes. Anyways, if you like the video, give it a like. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe. Leave a comment down below. What are your guys' predictions for UFC Noche? Who are you picking, Diego Lopes or João Silva? Do you guys think Diego can upset the up-and-coming João Silva, or do you think João Silva will rise to new occasions and show out for the Fighting Nerds camp that has suffered 2 defeats in a row? I will see you guys in the next video, or after the fights, excuse me. Peace.